All right. Well, I am becoming a real big fan of this Dr. Vinay Prasad. I talk about my moonshots, eternal youth, spaceships, everyone. Not really Google results for this kind of stuff. Of course, resurrection. Necromancy. Not really that I could see Google results, but I definitely know I've heard of Cancer Moonshot. And this guy is just this guy is great. Yeah, I'm not sure that. I don't know if you have to be a doctor to really listen to this guy's stuff, but he is definitely a doctor as well as a MPH, and he's great. He's very aggressive. I really like how aggressive he is in a field like hematology, oncology. He really says some things that I'm surprised that billion-dollar corporations don't really try to mess with him. I guess he's so well established that corporations are kind of like, and it's just wrong, you know? Corporations making so much money that, but we all kind of want the cancer moonshot, and that's not seeming to be often driven by corporations making billions of dollars. Yeah, this guy is. I'm almost afraid for this guy. Like, but I mean, I don't know the field too well. He talks a lot about FDA resignations, big CDC errors. I would think that this is upsetting the powers that be in the medical industrial complex too much, but yeah, he definitely gets. I definitely respect him because of how much I feel is kind of going out on a limb. I'm surprised corporations don't try to sue him or even, Cloud Atlas style, like, in Cloud Atlas we see corporations kind of like put a hit on someone's head just because there's so many billions of dollars on the line. Yeah, right here. Yep. All right, let's listen to one of his most popular ones. Let's see. I have no idea about a lot of this medical industrial complex stuff, but yeah, these are some of his most popular videos. Let's see.
There's been some bombshell news at the FDA over the last few days. Two senior officials in the Office of Vaccine Research and Review, Marion Gruber and her deputy, Philip Krause, have resigned. This is a huge news story that hasn't gotten the coverage it deserves. Let me talk about it. First of all, if you work at the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, the absolute best time in your entire career is the moment when you're making decisions of immense worldwide importance, and that's where they are right now. To resign in these circumstances is itself an incredible thing. And why did it happen? Multiple news outlets are suggesting that they resigned over pressure from the White House to approve boosters on a timeline dictated by the White House. This is a huge problem. Now, you may remember that back during the Trump administration, many people, myself included, were quite upset to even have a whiff of political pressure on the FDA. The FDA has to make safety and efficacy decisions in a space free of political influence. They cannot be shaped by political factors. It can only be shaped by the data that they see. We've seen over the last few weeks, the White House has run a PR campaign saying boosters are coming. People I know are calling me, telling me that on September 20th, they're going to get a booster. How do they know they're going to get a booster on September 20th? Because it's been announced. People have been pushing this. But what is the data to support boosters? I've done multiple videos, written multiple columns where I say the data is simple. It's not about diminishing vaccine efficacy. It's about the safety and effectiveness of the booster. If you give a booster to somebody, what is the rate of myocarditis? What is the reduction in severe SARS-CoV-2 infection? You need to know those two things and make sure one is bigger than the other before you proceed. It's about the risks and benefits of the product. This is medicine 101, people. We don't approve products because the situation is bad. We approve products because they make the situation better. And that's what these two officials at the FDA understand. They felt pressure, it seems like, from multiple news stories, and they resigned as a result of that. That is not a good situation. One, what message does that send for confidence in vaccines? It's a devastating message. We live at a time where public perception of vaccines is incredibly important, and it needs to be preserved at all costs. White House influence on the agency leading to resignations, that's the worst thing that could possibly happen for the process. The next thing, what do they want? What do they actually want to see out of boosters? These are officials tasked with thinking about safety efficacy of vaccines. I think it's very important to know what they wanted. We've seen over this last week that Moderna has submitted a plan, a plan to bring boosters forward based on an uncontrolled study of 344 people or something like that. I don't know how an uncontrolled study is going to help you understand the risk benefits around boosters. You need, again, randomized controlled trials. This is not rocket science. You need to know that the risks and benefits of boosters, that the benefits far outweigh the harms. And you don't know that from an uncontrolled study. In fact, the study sample size is so small, you won't even know the frequency of rare AEs that are of critical importance, such as myocarditis, especially in that group of men between the ages of 16 and 24. What are we to think of all this? I think there's one more additional layer we have to factor in. This is the current narrative, is that it was the booster pressure that led to the resignations, but there's something else that's been brewing. The FDA has requested the sample size of ongoing studies in age group 5 to 11 be doubled. That's a very unusual choice. It's not often that the FDA increases sample size midstream for quote-unquote safety concerns, which was the offered reason. By increasing it just by twice, it doesn't give you a ton of power to find rare safety events. So one wonders, how much more power do you have in that study? What safety events were you missing that you now can find? That's a very unusual set of safety events with a certain frequency. And the safety events, most people believe, even myself included, that we're thinking about in this age group are going to be a little bit more infrequent than that based on other ages to date. So why did they do this? Why did they double the sample size? Are they pushing back politically here? Do they feel the pressure of this decision as well? I think it's very important that these people are interviewed the moment that they resign in October, November, and they can give voice to what their concerns are. I think this is devastating news. We have no FDA commissioner. We're losing people with experience in the vaccine regulation space. We're getting a bunch of fresh people making these kinds of decisions. This is not good for drug policy and drug regulation, which is, of course, my interest. I think those are my thoughts. I can't think of anything else. I think you want to know why they resigned, and I think the mere fact they resigned is already devastating. It's already a devastating finding, and if we don't listen to what they have to say and take very seriously the levels of evidence that they require, we stand on the cusp of making some of the most foolish decisions society can ever make around vaccines. Vaccines are an incredible and important thing in human civilization. You don't want any perception of politics in this space. If you like this video, like, subscribe, leave a message, comment. You know the deal. Discrepancies that I've seen. I want to talk about some troubling discrepancies that I've seen from the CDC. These are things that have happened over the last week, and they just keep sticking with me, so I want to talk about them. First up, a discrepancy between what the CDC director told ABC News and what was revealed at a CDC meeting later that week. This is the ABC News headline. I'm going to show it right here on the screen. It says, with nearly 5 million children getting COVID vaccines, no safety problems have been seen, CDC director says. This is dated December 10th. And that is the ABC News headline. But let me read you the article for fear that the headline mischaracterizes the piece. It says this: with nearly 5 million children aged 5 to 11 now vaccinated against COVID-19, CDC Director Rochelle Walensky says real-world monitoring finds vaccines are safe for young children. Crucially, the CDC hasn't identified any concerns with a temporary heart inflammation known as myocarditis, a potential side effect of mRNA vaccines seen in rare circumstances in teens and young adults. We haven't seen anything yet, Walensky told ABC News chief medical correspondent Dr. Jennifer Ashton in a rare in-person interview from CDC headquarters in Atlanta. We have an incredibly robust vaccine safety system, and if so, if problems were there, we would find it. This is what the article says. Now, of course, myocarditis has been well documented in the ages 12 to 40, but particularly in that subgroup of 16 to 24, boys more than girls, Moderna more than Pfizer. This is something that many people are concerned about. It's a real safety signal. And the reason it's important is that it occurs more often on dose 2 than dose 1, and there might be a way to deliver vaccines to many people to preserve the benefit of vaccination, but to mitigate the harms, to try to vaccinate in a way with perhaps a different dosing schedule, as I've talked about in a prior video, or perhaps a different dose, to actually have less myocarditis, but as much efficacy as you could possibly have. Now, naturally, when the 5 to 11 EUA came out, people were concerned that that safety signal will also be present in the younger age group. We didn't know for sure, of course. Myocarditis, of course, mostly a post-pubescent phenomenon, but people worried that it might be there in the prepubescent group. And so, naturally, you would want the CDC director to tell you accurately what they see and what they don't see. And on December 10th, this is what she said. And so I thought to myself, wow, 5 million people, not a single case, that's good news. And if anything, it might be a little bit too good to be true, but it's good. And a lot of people went forward saying that there's absolutely no safety signal seen here in 5 million cases. That's the usual Twitter sort of incorrect expert take. And some people privately told me that let's hang back a little bit until we get some more data and we could see the data. Then on December 16th at the CDC meeting to discuss what we're going to do with J&J, they presented information on myocarditis to VAERS among children aged 5 to 11. And this is what they report. I'm going to show you the slide right here. This is from the CDC's own slide. And it actually says on this slide, as of December 10th, 2021, the same date the CDC director is talking to ABC News. Doses administered, 7.1 million. As of December 9th, the day before, 3,233 reports to the VAERS among children aged 5 to 11. There are 14 reports of myocarditis. 5 reports follow-up is in progress. 9 reports have information obtained. 8 reports met CDC working case definition for myocarditis. That's in bold. That's their bold, not my bold. 4 men, 4 female. 4 male, 4 female. After dose 1, 2 cases. After dose 2, 6 cases. 1 report under review. And then the next slide. This describes in detail the cases. Patient number 1 was 6 years old, male, chest pain, elevated troponins, you can see on the screen. Patient number 2, female, 7 years old, chest pain, elevated troponins, normal EKG and echo, still recovering at the time of report. Patient number 3, 8 years old, onset, 2 days, dose number 2, chest pain, elevated troponins, symptoms resolved. Patient number 4, a 9-year-old male, chest pain, elevated troponins, and the list goes on and on. Now, what is going on here? What is going on? There are many things we can debate. One thing we can debate is this rate of myocarditis higher than baseline? Well, because of course there's some baseline rate of myocarditis all the time, the answer is, I don't know for sure based on these numbers, but I suspect that when you have a safety signal you've already identified in other ages, and you're starting to see this with sort of this classic pattern, this classic few days after dose 2 pattern, elevated troponins, I think it will likely be attributable to vaccine. That's not going to be a surprise. The next question is this the rate that's going to emerge? Is it really only going to be 14 cases out of 7 million? And the answer is no. This is early in a passive surveillance system. The rate will change over time. I don't know what the rate will be. I personally think it will likely be the case that 16 to 24 has the peak rate, so I don't think it'll be as high as that. That's just a guess. But I think there will be some rate here. But put all that aside. What is going on with the CDC director's statement to ABC News? When she was talking to ABC, she said specifically, we have an incredibly robust safety system, and if problems were there, we would find it. And, quote, we haven't seen anything yet. But she had their own analysis with a data halt one day before. Is she not aware of the analysis? Does she not know what analyses are being performed in the CDC? That's not going to be good. Or is she aware of it and somehow incorrectly characterizing it to the news, which is also not good. But either way, whatever the explanation is, this is not good. No, who is going to trust this person again when you are getting caught lying? And that's the word for it, because I don't know what else is going on. Either you didn't know, or you knew and you were deliberately saying that, but either way, what you were saying was untrue. It was untrue at the time you said it. And it matters a great deal. Actually, it's not a trivial matter. It's a sensitive matter that people are very sensitive about naturally. And people want to know the actual signals, safety signals. And people debated this for a long period of time. They've debated it for many months because the benefits to kids of that age group are going to be smaller and the risks are going to be much more salient and relevant. And so, what am I to think about this CDC director? I don't like this at all. I got to be careful how I put it, but I think it's absolutely unacceptable. People are concerned about this. You can say, I don't know. I haven't seen anything, but they're running the analysis right now. No one has told me yet, but we're running the analysis. But to have this contradiction in a short period of time absolutely loses all credibility, and it's devastating. I think that credibility is sunk. Next thing I want to say, this wasn't the only story that caught my eye. There was another story in Bloomberg, and also maybe I'll show the Axios report. It's called CDC Overcounts Millions of Vaccinations, and it basically says that over the last week, they have lowered the percent vaccinated among the 65 and older cohort who have received at least one shot from 99.9%, where it had been for weeks, to 95% without changing any raw shot totals. And people say, Illinois, Pennsylvania, West Virginia found overcounting of first shots in their database. Pennsylvania says, according to Bloomberg, the CDC estimates of first doses exceed state estimates by 850,000. Illinois had more than 500,000 completely unvaccinated people than initially thought. There are widespread discrepancies. One person, James Garrow, a spokesperson for Philadelphia Department of Public Health, says, quote, we don't have any faith in the numbers on the CDC website, and we never refer to them. Where it has really made it difficult for us is targeting our booster messaging, Garrow said. The truth is we have no idea, says Clay Marsh, West Virginia COVID czar. Can y'all count? This is not a hard thing. How many people got the first dose? How many people got the second dose? How many people got boosters? And how many people are there in the country? This is rudimentary numbers. This is numbers 101. You don't need to go to much school to know how to count. And simple counting of how many people got the shot would be a basic core competency of the agency. These are two huge errors. I don't know how to put it. You don't know that your own analysis done on a data halt the day before is finding myocarditis, and you're telling the news we don't find anything. And two, you can't even seem to count how many people have gotten the vaccine. I don't know what to say. I think this is disgraceful. There are many people online who are lamenting the current state of the pandemic. They say things like, how can we be where we are right now, and people don't have home test kits, people don't have this, people don't have that. I mean, these are legitimate points. I mean, yeah, how can we be where we are now and you go to the store and the home test kits are sold out? How can that be? But I might ask a more simple question, which is how can you be where we are now and the CDC of a premier nation spending trillions of dollars on this pandemic, or losing trillions of dollars on this pandemic, cannot even keep count of how many vaccines have been administered. What does that say? What does that say? I don't know what to say. It's a huge failure. The whole anyone responsible for this should be summarily fired and we should get new people in charge because this is a huge failure. You can't even tell me how many vaccines were given. You have no clue. You're inaccurate. Other agencies are literally saying that they cannot trust your numbers. And you also are going public at a very sensitive time and you're telling ABC that we have seen nothing when your own analysis a few days later is presented at the meeting and it just contradicts that. I don't know what to say. It's a painful state. I mean, there's wrong, and you can give them the benefit of the doubt. And then there's core competencies, just knowing what's going on in your shop, being able to count, and there's no forgiving that. It's just not good enough to get that wrong when you're at this level. I wouldn't tolerate it even at a far lower level. I certainly won't tolerate it here. I'm surprised this isn't the front page news headline. They can't even count. How can we trust them to solve this? And I think, or they're telling us inaccurate information, either knowingly or unknowingly, but both are not good. The CDC director not knowing what analyses are being run, that's not good. Or knowingly telling you a deception, perhaps to encourage vaccination, that's not good either. Neither is good. So these are things I saw this last week, and like a pebble in my shoe, it just keeps irritating me. And I've tried to be quite polite in how I frame my characterization of these positions, but there is no justification. There's no one who's going to be able to excuse these failures. These are huge failures, catastrophic failures. If they happened under the last guy, it would be the biggest news story you'd ever hear. But because it's happening now, it is really ignored and forgiven, and I find that to be deeply problematic, even as someone who I've repeatedly said, and is true, identifies as strongly left of center, somebody who wants to see really true reform in the economic systems in this country. So, that's what you get on this channel. If you like this video, like, subscribe, comment, leave a message below. I'll be back to talk about some other things that have caught my eye recently, but thematically they don't fit with this. This is really CDC blunders, and until next time.
I want to quickly share what for me
All right. Well, I highly recommend this podcast that I'm listening to by Dr. Vinay Prasad, Plenary Sessions. That's a pretty cool name, Plenary Sessions. I've been listening to it. It seems like you gotta see the video that goes.
Welcome. I'm Dr. Vinay Prasad.
Yeah. There does not seem to be any video. Well. This was 3 years ago. The most recent one. It seemed to me like he was just talking about the video that goes along with the podcast. Oh well. Anyway. Yeah. Not sure you have to be a doctor to understand what he's saying. I think a lot of it is don't get too intimidated by the medical industrial complex, the medical establishment. What he says is very kind of like what that Stanford bioengineering class professor says. Professor Andy. It's really just kind of know how statistics works, know how to read a paper, and don't get fooled by all the mumbo jumbo, because yeah, he straight up says a lot of stuff in his most recent podcast that basically, and many podcasts, he said doctors are not knowing what they're doing. They're causing more harm than good. And yeah, that's. Whew. I mean, we spend so much money on healthcare in the U.S. and our lifespans are not that good. So we spent the most on healthcare of all countries per capita, I think, and our lifespans are very mediocre for Western developed countries. All right. I definitely did not get no MD degree, so I still kind of back off in saying too much because I just don't have that MD degree. And